everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Making a Difference in Mental Health. I'm Danielle.
I'm Wendy.
Wendy, let everyone know about this new exciting series that we'll be going through.
So yes, it's a topic we've never talked about.
Mhm.
And we wanted to explore how this topic and mental health fit together.
Mhm.
So our series is on gaming.
Yes.
We know a lot of people are in gaming, so we want to explore a little bit more about that. And I'm very happy to introduce a therapist from our Montgomery County site, Raphael S5E8.
Hey, Rafi.
Hey, we nickname and affectionately call him Rafi.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
welcome.
Yes,
Thank
how
you
are
for
you
having
doing?
me.
Coming to the episode today to talk about this really cool, interesting topic and how we're going to link it to mental health.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. How'd you get involved in gaming, et cetera, et cetera?
I think a lot of us, when it comes to gaming, there's always an origin story. For me, it was the 90s, mid 90s when we had Nintendo 64, we had the Super Nintendo, and I had two older brothers to push me to play against them, with them, and, just explore this virtual world that is now to this day, in an online basis, is expanded beyond, I think it's over I would say like 4 billion, 4 billion people all around the world who are playing video games. But once upon a time, you had your brothers, you had your friends right next to you playing, and you were playing Star Fox, you were playing Mario, you were playing Zelda, and you were going on that journey together. So, a part of that conversation is a lot of maybe viewers, a lot of maybe other clinicians, other people in general also experience that feeling of playing with a friend, playing with somebody, and that Adlerian concept of being an observer and somebody of action. So, yeah, no, gaming is a vast world. There's so much to talk about when it comes to gaming. I don't even think 3 hours could even be compacted into. So.
Wow.
I mean, we're going to get into the questions today. When you said 4 billion, I don't know if I can really comprehend 4 billion people within the gaming community, but what I can relate to, and this is probably the most that I can relate to, is having a Super Nintendo. No, actually not even the Super Nintendo, the regular one, and then a Super Nintendo. But this was about all I could, really kind of connect with. I do know Super Mario and I do know Luigi, but
So
that's
the
about
journey
it.
started with my roommate in this old-fashioned Pac-Man.
Mhm.
And then in the 80s, and, of course, with my daughter growing up, it was Nintendo
Mhm.
and then Xbox. But I like the Just Dance. So that's what I was into.
Mhm.
And so every year we Just Dance 2020, 2021, 2022. So yeah, but I don't think she really did a lot of gaming. But
Mm.
and on the Nintendo, it seemed like she played games.
Yeah, that was probably the span of what I was able to
Right.
do. But let's kind of get into the interview. I mean, Rafa, you're talking about, I guess, the nostalgia of having someone sit next to you. And now we're in this space where you don't have to even be sitting next to someone to have them on your team or to communicate. You could be communicating with someone across the United States or even, overseas.
It's the tech.
Exactly. And then, we come into this idea of now, because there's so much that goes into gaming. I'm wondering, do you consider gaming just a hobby or a sport now?
So, at a certain threshold, you consider it a sport, but it always starts as a hobby. It always starts as something that connects you with fantasy. And one of the biggest reasons why somebody is to play video games is escape. It's to find it's to fill in the gaps, the things that you don't typically have on a day to day, and you are able to replace that with something with meaning. So for me, it was Star Wars games. I love Star Wars games like Battlefront games, Rogue Squadron, all that stuff. I wanted to be a rebel pilot. That was kind of my big thing. For and then other aspects of me, I wanted to be a Jedi, right? So I could be both, and I could be on different levels of metachlorian count because that's what the fantasy gave me. That's what video games gave me. So it always starts out as a hobby, and then once there is some level of talent, I think and a lot of gameplay, a lot of hours on a game, individuals start to separate themselves from the average gamer, and they want to compete. They want to play in tournaments. They want to go to conventions. They want to, talk smack to their favorite streamer and try to challenge them to maybe either clout or so forth. But it's really just this narrative, this ongoing narrative that comes from, well, I'm doing this for fun, to, well, a part of the fun is the competition. And that's where the sports arena comes in. Esports, I think, has over, boy, I think it's over 100. I think it's over $100 million just in equity for just basic competitions. Bigger ones are like League of Legends. It's like it's CDL, which is Call of Duty. Apex has ALGS, right? So there's a lot of money that goes in and out of those events.
And people can make money just being a gamer, right? I've heard that.
Oh, that is just one job. Yes, absolutely.
Now, see, this is where I'm thinking, did I go wrong with putting down the controller like the Nintendo? But as you're talking, and honestly, I feel like this is opening up for non-gamers. I don't even know what the lingo would be for a non-gamer, but this is really opening up a world and a little bit more insight into not only the hobby side, like you said, and it's almost like you've trained to a point where, I mean, it is a sport, or the mental energy that goes into it, and the time and the capacity to, I'm guessing, to remember codes and plays and strategies. And, also if you're with a team of people across the pond or something, all of these things that go into it lead up into, like you said, the competitive nature of gaming. And I believe you might have said something about conferences. And I mean, I'm curious, have you ever competed, to the point where you're winning some money, or have you ever been to conferences, or, what's that like for you?
So there's a couple of ways I've been involved. So originally I was actually a competitive gamer myself. As I was starting on my own game stream, I got into a game called Star Wars Squadrons, which is a competitive based game for what it was before it died down. But what it was a community of fantasy pilots, people who could defy the laws of gravity and use propulsion systems to boost gas. It was the small community that could create tournaments, and at the time there was money that was put into the pot to be able to compete against teams around the globe into these big tournaments. So I started off in a team, a couple of teams. I was a free agent at one point, just playing as an objective player. I played in a TIE bomber. That was my big thing. And then eventually I was like, you know what? I'm a little bit too old for competing, because I wrestled in college. I already kind of had that out of my system. So I figured, you know what? I want to focus more on the science, on the research, the mental health, psychology of gaming and streaming and all that stuff. So after a certain duration of time, like, there are conventions. I don't know if y'all know about AwesomeCon in DC.
Listen, you are opening up our eyes to a whole new world. Yeah, we are non-gamer. What do you call non-gamers? Is it non-gamers?
It's you could say non-gamers, offline gamers, or like a separate breed of gamers. There are gamers who do play casually. There's casual gamers, there's competitive gamers, there's there's casters or broadcasters who broadcast specific events for tournaments and so forth in games. So there's many different roles when it comes to being in the gaming industry, in the gaming world, and also a part of an actual competitive team. For gaming, there is a coach, there's manager, and then there's the team, right? So there's a whole there's a whole thing that's a part of it. It's a whole ordeal. I remember once it was when I was going through my master's degree, and I was starting to get into behavioral addictions, and I found a class that was specific behavioral addictions, and we watched a video of Halo 3 competitive gamers for a competitive team called Luminosity, and they were like training like they were in boot camp. They were going outside, they were doing their runs, they were obviously they showed a little bit of the coaching and the gaming that's a part of it. Strict diets, sleep schedule, everything was very specific. I don't know how nowadays it looks when it comes to those competitive teams, but originally it used to be a big deal because there was a lot of money funneling into these events, and it was a big deal, especially if you're competitive. If you're an actual professional gamer, that's your lifestyle. The success that you have in competition really relates to, even the financials that come through this professional team, such as Luminosity, which is to this day is one of the bigger esports teams just all around, just for any game.
I imagine you're playing for hours, right? And you can't just easily take a break. And especially if there's money on the line and all of that. So, it doesn't sound, I was like, wow. But then I thought about it for a second. I'm like, not so crazy that you have to like really train and be in shape and get good sleep. We talk about sleep
We always
hygiene.
talk about sleep hygiene here. Like that is one of the
so that your brain can function and you can do the task at hand for your team and your teammates. So wow, that's really a lot of dedication. And nice segue into my next question, since this is a mental health podcast. Let's talk about, you always hear women joking about, oh, my man, he's just playing games all the time. He doesn't pay any attention to me. Something's wrong with him. He just games 24/7. They don't eat, they don't sleep, they don't drink. So let's talk about the pros and cons, Rafi, of gaming in terms of mental health. And you touched upon, I think, some good things in terms of, teaming, and it's a social thing, and people go to conferences and competitions, and that's like that one thing that everybody shares. But what other things can happen or go wrong with somebody who is heavily involved in gaming?
So how I look at all behavioral addictions is through the 6-component model, which it's subsidized from substance use back in the early 90s, and it addresses and really it started with gambling. Which the 6-component model, it's the salience of what you're doing. So it's how important is that activity in your life. It's the mood modification of say, you take an L, right? You lose, what is your reaction when you're playing in a competitive game? That would be that reaction gives an insight of that mood modification. The tolerance of what you're doing. So if you're gaming for 8 hours, right, to get that fix every day, especially for competitive gamers, you got to game out for like 12. Some people game out 24 hours, especially if they're a streamer and they're running events and stuff like that. Yep, they are going to town. There's relapse, right? So say I want to quit and I want to go and substitute for something different, such as sports and so forth, but I'm feeling like the sports isn't really giving that same fix, and I come back and I'm grinding out for another 8-12 hours. Well, that's a part of the relapse of gaming. There's withdrawal, right? Do you ever get are you ever bouncing in class thinking about playing Marvel Rivals, playing about Call of Duty, thinking about it, which preoccupies you, takes you away from the here and now, the presence? And then last but not least, it's the conflict. It's the conflict with others, conflict within the game. It's pretty much seeing conflict as a general concept. Yeah. So the 6-component model really is kind of how I see the negatives. Now, I work with a couple of people who have very fixed criteria to how we would consider something addiction versus problematic behavior. And that's kind of what I do is I try to delineate both of them because there's a big separation what they are. Problematic behaviors are, yes, you might hear about the mood modifications where kids are really they're breaking stuff, they're rebelling against their parents, they're not sleeping, they're not eating, substance use is a part of it, not getting good grades, right? And then all of a sudden, there's this big, like, what do we do? This person is rebelling, this person is going outside of what they typically do. They're a kind kid. This kid is very adventurous and so forth. So it's about separating, okay, well, at a certain point, well, do these problematic behaviors require clinical assessment, right? And person I work with, I'm working on research with, his name is Dr. Mark Griffith. He is one of the kind of like the founding fathers of behavioral addictions. He says that it has to hit every criteria of the 6 at max, right? And then and only then will it be considered addiction. Some of those symptoms can even be considered positives over negatives, and vice versa. There could be kind of a tug of war of the interpretation, but really it's about trying to separate. Okay, well, what is your path? Where are you going with your gaming?
Right. So. I mean, I think this conversation is so interesting that you can apply a model very similar to addiction and looking at intensity, frequency, duration. I love how we talked about the impacts of relationships. And as you begin to talk, we also talked about even children, adolescents, our teens, and we look at that from a clinical space as well. How gaming that is something fun, how we talked about earlier, that can start out as a hobby, that can have some positive components of competition, healthy competition, discipline, socializing. But if there's too much of something like the doctor said, if there's too much of something and it reaches its peak, again, intensity, duration, the frequency of, just this desire to constantly game, and the same qualities of the socialization and of the competition becomes, instead of healthy, it's unhealthy.
Right.
I think this is a really good example of how we can take something very simple in this world of gaming and apply it to the clinical space. And then, like you said, you have some research on it to be able to apply. And, for us to consider our kids, kind of falling into this category, and even adults. And the one other thing I wanted to say before we wrap up is, kind of get your insight on it too. Did you find that during COVID, did we see an increase of, I think it's called like gamer rage? Did we see an increase of that during that particular time? And what are your thoughts about it?
Everything related to behavior in tech was completely it was pushed to the max during COVID. But you also saw greater aspirations to be a professional gamer, to be a streamer, a broadcaster, to be involved in gaming in the virtual world, because that was the business that was booming during COVID. And as you could tell, there was a lot of push for online business, to be able to have a Zoom call and to talk about gaming or in that aspect, or to be able to use accessibility features and to do it, with lack of affordability. Like, these are amazing things that happened during COVID, but it also really pushed the pace when it came to technology and where are we when it comes to not even just psychology, just behavioral economics, when it comes to aspirations, emerging technology and things that we want, that we need as human beings to keep thriving in the tech world. So the COVID definitely I have a lot of clients that were set back from COVID, did not complete high school, struggled in college, dropped out, substance use. There's no end to those stories, but I can say there were those who thrived by understanding these additional resources, who knew how to navigate between fake news and real news, and be able to communicate with their friends and family in a very, very strict time of need. So I believe that COVID definitely sent a lot of those economics online, and it sent it through video games, and it sent it through social live streaming services, which is where you see like Twitch or YouTube or Facebook gaming, and that's kind of like that's the center of gaming when you're not gaming, kind of thing. So
Yeah.
these places
So
get a little bit more expensive.
yeah, it sounds like there's just a fine line. There's a fine line between, a bit unhealthy and, and healthy, and awareness, self-awareness. Yeah.
Right. So, Rafi, as we wrapping up, we like to end our podcast with tips and things to share with parents. So if I'm a young gamer and I really enjoy it, what would you be telling my parent?
So there's two things I'll go over, and there's a lot there when it comes to treatment for gaming. I would say in the past 3 decades, treatment in gaming has expanded to a point where we are even using tech to fight against tech. But I'm a little bit more traditional in nature.
Yeah, using tech to fight against tech. Mhm.
It's like fighting in Terminator. So I'll reflect on Dr. Kimberly Young. She passed away unfortunately in 2019, but she was the first person to actually come out with a study in America about social media. Her perspective was that gaming was a subcategory of online use, which Dr. Griffith did not like, and said, well, gaming is separate from online use, from social media, and we there are similarities and they can intersect, but they are two different categories, right? So, but Dr. Kimberly Young came up with a couple of good things. She first came up with CBTIA, so cognitive behavioral therapy specific for internet addiction, and this is a three-phase kind of process. The first phase is the behavioral modification. So, what is replacement for what you're doing? So, if I'm spending 12 hours on a game, what is just as good as staying inside in front of a computer for 12 hours? And then the phase two is cognitive therapy. So, it's more about denial, things that are going on that are encouraging the behavior to persist, to encouraging it to become even more great in your day, and and that takes a good bit of time. I think that for clinicians, you probably take a good amount of time to understand why people use gaming. What is it that they're missing? What is it that they're replacing? And then the last phase is harm reduction. So, what is coexisting at the same time that you are experiencing this drag of gaming for long periods of time, right? Is it depression, which it mostly is? Is it sleep deprivation, which a lot of it is? Is it encouragement of substance use, which most of the time it is for adults? So that CBTIA is one of those things that has been developed for many decades. There's also, for parents, I hard push modeling. So how often is it that we're in front of in front of kids with our phone in our hand, right? And I really do recommend that people consider what is it that others see in us when we are on our phone, when we are playing video games, and so forth, right? Nowadays, I know a few friends who are like cradling a baby and playing a game at the same time. And I mean, kids are growing up great, but that parents are just trying to fit in some self-care into their day, and they consider that hour of gaming, 2 hours of gaming as their self-care, but they're still juggling a baby physically and emotionally. So that's a big deal when it comes to modeling. Is will eventually, do parents push away kids when they are gaming, right?
Yeah.
kids want to come and they want to get involved. They want to they want to experience the gaming world. Well, at what point does a parent say, this is this is definitely something you should know, moving forward. You should know about the gaming world, or I don't want you to be anywhere around the gaming world because there's so much violence or there's so many things that I don't understand. So it's either this 0 to 100 or 0 or 100 kind of mindset when it comes to gaming. So modeling is huge when it comes to moderation, when it comes to practicing to listening to biofeedback, to listening to sleeping patterns, eating patterns, when it comes to exercise and separating exercise from emotional exercise versus physical exercise.
Right.
And then again, good nutrients and so forth. So modeling is huge. One thing that the last thing I'll mention is Dr. Kimberly Young mentioned about the 3-6-9-12 model for technology and very much similar to gaming, which at different periods in human development require different types of technology, right? Like 0 to 3, you got Miss Rachel, but like at 12, we're talking about video games. We're talking about rated T games, which are like kind of like PG-13. So there's definitely a separation in technology. I think as either professionals, parents, teachers, we have to understand the differences there. That ongoing conversation of when do I get a phone? Well, that's a part of it, right? And it's a constant dialogue with grown-ups. When are you mature and ready for it? Yes.
Wow, that was a lot, but you know what? It's very consistent with any other type of wellness that we talk about.
Exactly.
So your sleep hygiene, checking on your mental and your physical health,
your diet,
and even, you kind of put a call on the parents too, to kind of watch their interactions or lack thereof when, it comes to just natural interactions with their kid. Can you put the cell phone down or the iPad down to increase that socialization?
Control down and talk to me?
So, I mean, even though we're talking about gaming, it's very applicable across the board when we talk about mental health as well.
Exactly.
So this was very, a very meaty conversation, very in depth, and I've learned a lot.
Same here, because I considered gaming. I knew a little bit about it being a hobby, and then I did know about conferences and competition, but there's a lot to consider when you game. The big message I got from it is you got to know your boundaries, especially like if you are moving into the competition world where it's so much training that your training doesn't become an addiction. Right. And then when you have, kids that are starting to game or parents who game, again, boundaries, healthy boundaries, the modeling, which Raphael mentioned, is so important, especially I love that 3-6-9-12 because, we use human development every day in our work, and brain development is so important when you're talking about these subjects and what kids can take in and what kids can learn. And then, yes, the ongoing battle of why do they have a cell phone in first grade?
That's a whole other conversation. I mean, I do like the idea that you're kind of pulling from, it seems like Erickson with the, stages of development, and then you have Piaget. For those, we're talking about the forefathers of development who are watching, like, who's Erickson, who's Piaget? Well, look them up, and then you'll see how still it's kind of applicable even now with this particular topic.
It's
and
timeless.
It certainly is. And Rafi, I loved how you brought it from just your, like, again, the hobby to the competition to, you said, let's look at the science behind it. And you've given us a lot of resources, referrals, research, and just some, common sense application to making sure we are maintaining, or gamers and even non-gamers to know about how to maintain your mental, physical health, your wellness when it comes to the world of gaming. Yeah,
absolutely.
So we're so to have you. Is there anything else that you wanted to say, or is there anything that else you wanted to plug before we, kind of sign off for today?
We haven't really got into ADHD and gaming. That is a whole different realm, but that is just a testament to where. Yeah, that's just a testament to where we are with researching gaming. There is so much that I can't provide in such a short period of time because, starting with Dr. Kimberly Young and Dr. Griffith, they have expanded their research from gambling to social media to gaming, of course, to pornography and different sex addictions to there is a vast world when it comes to behavioral addictions that in the US is considered the silent problems, the silent addictions versus other parts in the world, right? So we are behind.
Yeah. And we do say here that we do believe at some point gaming will be part of the DSM-6 or 7. And so, what we really, honestly, I guess we can do is have you back because like you said, you could go on.
I'd love to talk about behavioral addictions as a umbrella topic and, hit ADHD and, all the other addictions that we as people, human beings fall into. So that would be a great episode. Yeah. But we also want you all to tune in for Gaming and Mental Health Part 2. That'll be our next episode coming up. Rafi, we thank you so much for just coming and sitting with us and kind of opening our eyes to a whole new world in the mental health area. And so, Wendy, anything else? Nope, I've enjoyed it. I, again, love to hear a little bit more about that modality, CBT, IA, and how that is implemented with clients in terms of what we've talked about today. So thank you for spending your time with us today and giving us such good knowledge and information about gaming. I've learned a lot because I'm a non-gamer.
Me too. I'm Danielle.
I'm Wendy.
And this is Making a Difference in Mental Health, where we're always striving to make a difference in mental health. We'll see you next time. Bye.